So based on the careers you want to pursue, they may require a different set of capabilities or a different set of core competencies at the personal level. So the first thing you have to do is identify the required competencies the company may look for. And then second step you have to take is assess your core competencies. That what are your core competencies? And there are lots of the different core competencies as I have illustrated, right? Strategic planning, excellent interpersonal skills, creativity, and leadership. And step number 3 is matching the required capability of the company and then the core capabilities or core competencies you have. And if there is a matching core competencies, and then step number 4 is illustrating or communicating your skills to the companies you want to go. Okay? And if the company think that your explanation that you are equipped with the required capabilities which the company are looking for, and then you may have a better chance in being chosen by the companies. But in most cases, you may assess your capabilities, okay? So you just jump into the step number 2. Okay, I'm very strong in interpersonal skills. And then, without considering what kind of capabilities the companies are looking for, you simply emphasize that I'm a person with an excellent interpersonal skills, and please give me a chance to work in your company. And then the chance of being chosen by the company will be very low because you do not analyze, you just skipped the first step. What are the capabilities the companies are looking for? Okay. So instead of assessing your capabilities and persuading that you have such capabilities, your starting point should be what are the capabilities the companies are looking for. And then second step is list up your capabilities. And then step number 3, try to match between the required capabilities and your retained capabilities. And then number 4 is persuading the companies and demonstrating that you have already those capabilities equipped for the companies you want to work. Okay, so just to think about, for the exercise, think about your core capabilities. Okay, and in building the business strategy, companies' core capabilities can be considered. Okay, so in short, so core competency concept is very useful in identifying what are the strengths and the resources which can be distinguished your company from the competitors. Okay. Core competency of a company may lead the future of the organization. So this is the Korean article. So I'm very sorry not to deliver all the contents of this interesting article. But the main theme of this article is, as I have explained, core competency of a company may lead the future of the organization. So they emphasize the importance of the core competency in developing the business strategy. If I summarize some of the key concepts, some of the key messages this article tries to deliver. Number one, the core competency is relative, intangible, and difficult to define, but it is still a useful concept. Okay, this concept is relative term because in designing or assessing the core competency, we also have to look at the competitors. If all the competitors are really good at manufacturing the products, our core competency may be the manufacturing may not be our core competencies because all the competitors in these markets are really excellent in their production capabilities. But in case all our competitors are really poor in terms of the production, and our company is relatively strong in production, and we can say that the production is one of our core competencies. So the concept of the core competency is relative to the level of our competitors. And also, core competency is intangible asset. It's not visible. We cannot touch the core competency of the company or the core competency of individual, right? If that's the creativity, if that's the leaderships, such things cannot be tangible at all. But even though we cannot touch this concept, it's still existing, right? And it's very difficult to define core competency in a single word, right? As a lot of scholars have defined, it can be defined as a harmonious combination of multiple resources and skills that distinguish a firm in the marketplace. Okay, it's still very difficult to define, right? But it's still a useful concept, okay? So to identify core competencies, it is necessary to look at them from an external customer's perspective rather than from internally, and in comparison with the competitors and throughout the overall value chain. Okay, core competency is the company's internal assets, right? But it's better to look at core competencies from an external customer's perspective rather than from internally, okay? So if you want to identify or assess your own personal core competency, you may think about your core competencies by yourself. Okay, what's my core competency? But the better way is asking your friend, asking your parents, asking the people around yourself to get their objective perspectives. And they may give you a very different perspective about yourself. So you think that you are very good at interpersonal skills, but a lot of people around yourself are saying that actually you are not very good at interpersonal skills, but you are a very creative person. So in order to get a very objective opinion about your core competencies, it is necessary to look at them from an external perspectives. So in terms of the company's core competencies, it's better to ask the core competency of the company to the customers, or to the suppliers, or to the competitors, or the experts in that industry. Okay, so anyway, that they try to get an external perspective, and that's the better view, that will provide a better view about core competency. And also, you have to, in identifying core competencies, you have to compare it with the competitors' core competencies. That's what I said in number one, right? That's why the core competency is relative term. And to identify core competencies, you have to look at the throughout the overall value chain. That's what I said in the previous slide, introducing the concept of the value chain from the Michael Porter. So I tried to disaggregate a lot of key activities which compose of the overall value chain, and in each of the activities you may assess your core competencies. Okay, and for the new business development, let me move on to the number three key contents of this article. For the new business development, firstly, define the nature of the business, and secondly, derive the necessary capabilities. Thirdly, identify the differences with the core competencies you have, and finally, compensate for the deficiencies from outside. What does that mean? So I introduced a student who is looking for a job or looking for a future career. So in terms of the core competencies, right, in my explanation of the previous slide, right? So in that case, the first thing we have to do is try to understand what's the core competencies the company is looking for. And then the second one is assess my capabilities. And next step is try to find out the gaps. Okay? And we may apply to the industry, we may apply to the company where I have relatively the better positioned in terms of the core competencies. So something like that. That's the tactics or the strategies in choosing my future careers, right? So in number three, I'm talking about the core competency in the company level. So when you try to build a new business, okay, first the thing you have to do is what kind of business it is. If that is a semiconductor manufacturing company, okay, you quickly identify that R&D is critical element in building this business. Or if you want to run the life insurance business, and you can easily identify that the sales is really important function in those businesses. So define the nature of the business first, and then derive the necessary capabilities. So in case of the Samsung life insurance, sales are really important necessary capabilities. In case of the Samsung electronics, research and engineering and production are important capabilities. And then thirdly, try to identify whether you have such capabilities or not. So you assess your capabilities first, and then think about what kind of capabilities are required in the new business development, and see whether there's a deficiencies or not. If something is missing in pursuing the new businesses internally, and then finally try to compensate for the deficiencies from outside. Maybe mergers and acquisition could be one of the options to compensate for the deficiencies. But if you think that there's no deficiencies, that means you have already equipped with the necessary capabilities inquired internally, which are required for the new business development, and then you can simply leverage such capabilities for the new businesses. So, and then you don't have to compensate for the deficiencies from outside, and you can just build that businesses internally. Okay. So, in essence, core competency is a good concept in developing the business strategy, which may lead the future of the organization.